Should I do it again? Should I do it one more time?
If you watch that countdown, those numbers are going like boom, boom, boom. That was
Right?
not 30 seconds.
Correct. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking too. Hey, welcome to Sif Pop, a different Sif Pop live show today. As you can tell, different video. There won't be the graphics, that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you why. Congratulations go out to producer Phil and his family on a brand new baby.
Hey!
Yay! Welcoming a new producer. Producer Phil, whole new meaning this week, producing a baby. And well done. Hey, listen, if you do he's that's one production. If you do it twice, it's a reproduction. What can I say? It's just how it works. No, congrats go out to Phil and his family, but I will be live producing the show today. Welcome, by the way, to all those who are watching live. It's going to be a little bit looser. We are going to record the first part of our Sifties episode today. Doc Trancy in the chat says hello. Hello to you as well, Doc. Good to see you. What's going on?
Hey.
So it's going to be a little bit looser today. We used to do old school video like this where we would kind of have some time at the beginning to chat with people who were, getting here and giving, people a chance to get into the show and then just record the podcast live. And that's more what today is going to be like. We will get back to the produced video show in the coming weeks, but just kind of wanted to give you a heads up on why it's different today. So we'll just go ahead and get into it. I'll do the live from the bunker stuff, and we'll go ahead and record the podcast. Andrew and Ben, if you're ready.
Can you give me 2 seconds? It's saying that my earbud battery's about to die. I need to switch them to another set.
Fair enough. We'll give the chat a chance
hear what
to
you're saying.
Yes. Do your thing. Get new earbuds. Yes. If you have any comments in the chat, let us know. This would be a good time. Any questions for us, anything like that. If you're wondering who Ben is, we're going to get to it in the show in case you don't recognize Ben. But he is the managing editor for sifpop.com. So he kind of makes sure everything keeps running there. And we'll talk to him a little bit about that in the episode. Just to kind of give you the rundown on what the Sifties will be, we're dividing it into 2 parts. This will probably happen every year now. And the first part will be the superlatives, like not the regular actor, actresses, or actually we just do performances. So not the regular performances, movies, moments, but all the other things like underrated, overrated, those kind of things we will do during this. And then we'll also do our best TV of 2020 because we wanted to kind of combine those as a year end. Those walls are getting interested. They're coming down in interesting ways, like the whole Small Act series, like, is it television? Is it movies? We honestly don't care what you call it as long as you watch it and talk about it. Like, that's kind of who we are. So I would not be surprised if the Sifties eventually are just visual media, and it's like, hey, you can include an episode of TV here if you want. You can include, whatever, but your, contained storytelling, visual media kind of thing is probably where we will end up going with that. Our buddy Aaron, but not that Aaron, saying woot woot, yay Ben.
Hey Aaron.
Aaron, by the way, does a great podcast called the Sif Pop Writers Room. If you want to look that up, you can do that.
I'm biased, but it's one of my favorite podcasts.
I'm biased as well. Also one of my favorite podcasts. So doing a great job on that. Giving Andrew a chance to get his headphones around here. Ben?
Yes?
Fill some time, man. just talk.
Well, I was thinking about what you were saying about the blending of TV and movies and that medium kind of starting to merge.
Yeah.
As streaming services and everything pop up. And I know we're about to, I'll probably mention it later in my favorite moments of the year this year, or this past year rather, but Zack Snyder's Justice League, that's like a 4-part miniseries. That was originally supposed to be a movie. And now will that count towards being a movie, or is that a miniseries, or the Small X stuff that you were talking about?
Yeah.
Where which I still haven't seen yet, unfortunately, but it's, how many movies is it in one series?
There's 5 or 6. I think I've seen them all but the last one. I think I've seen 5 and there are 6, or I've seen 4 and there are 5. I can't remember, but yeah, Lovers Rock and Mangrove are getting the most attention
Yeah.
From that series, and the whole thing is worth watching for sure. And
Yeah,
I think
that's
Barry Jenkins is doing something like that this year too, with a streamer where he's producing several, like, independent episodes of something. So yeah, I think it'll be a new kind of thing.
yeah. The worlds are really blending together as movie theaters start to, unfortunately, kind of go away because of the pandemic that we're going through. So
Yeah, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's just kind of it's rushed something that was already we were already on our way to movie theaters evolving or changing. I don't think ever dying, but they're definitely going to evolve.
Yeah,
I shouldn't say ever, but I'm just saying in our before I'm gone, I think there will be movie theaters in some way, shape, or form. But they definitely were always ready to evolve in some way or another. So,
yeah.
Andrew, can you hear us? Like, even you don't have your headphones in or anything? So, no, nothing yet.
He's staring intently at the screen, trying to figure out what we're saying.
He is. He's definitely trying to figure it out. Okay. Well, Ben, how about you just replace Andrew for the show today? We'll just kick him off, and you can just be the new Andrew. How's that sound?
That sounds. I mean, it's I guess it's punishment for guessing the wrong one on the list of shame.
Right. I hear the echo, so he's getting somewhere. He's got some headphones plugged in.
Yeah.
I think he's ready.
Are you back?
Yes.
Are you back and ready, sir?
I guess. Go out and I buy some fancy wireless earphones, and then the battery dies on them.
Yeah, that's no fun. That's no fun at all.
Okay.
I tried to do this with wireless earbuds 1 week, and the delay was just there was too much of I forget what it's called, where there's a delay from the Bluetooth. Bye, Andrew. Bye. It was nice having you here. But anyways, the delay was too much, so I went ahead and got a wired earbud kind of situation, which I enjoy.
Works fine now.
All right, let's record the podcast, guys. If everybody's ready,
I guess
we'll
we
do it.
could. I mean, I got nothing better to do.
We're all here. We might as well.
Might as well.
We might as well.
By the way, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that is somehow both underrated and overrated at the same time. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most weekends, are available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
Woo!
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and he's just a few of my favorite things. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
You both are the underrated. I'm the overrated.
I don't know about that. Each week, we'll chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. He's the human winner of the Best Ever Challenge. It's Ben Davis.
Yeah.
What's going on, guys? How are y'all?
Ben is
Good.
the managing editor for a little website called sifpop.com and does an incredible job at putting together the best ever challenges through our group of writers, making sure all that stuff gets taken care of and posted, and really the engine behind sifpop.com. And so I guess I would start just by saying thank you for that. And then
You're
also
far too kind, sir. Far too kind.
And then also thank you for hanging out with us today on part one of the Sifties, the 2020 Sifties, where we go over pop culture from the year 2020, and we focus mostly on movies because that's kind of what this podcast is about. But we've broken it into two parts, so I kind of want to give you the lay of the land before we get into this, and just tell you today we're doing superlatives, which those are kind of the periphery, best, worst kind of topics around movies of the year, as well as our favorite TV of the year. We're going to be talking about that. And that will be the show today. And then next week, we'll be doing the movies of the year, the performances of the year, and the movie moments of 2020. So That will give us some time to kind of go through each of these individual categories. We'll tell you how we're doing that here in a second. Ben, I did want to ask you before we kind of get into it, how'd you fall in love with movies? Like, when did movies become a passion for you?
So I've been obsessed with movies since I was a little kid, going back to when I wasn't even a year old yet. My mom loves to tell the story about how I snuck out of my crib, went down the stairs, turned on the TV, and put in a VHS tape, which is a very old-fashioned sentence, and turned on a movie. Now, obviously, I think that's like an infamous story. I don't know how true that is, but
At one?
Yeah, I'm thinking
it was
one.
before I turned one. It was before I turned one.
Before you were one.
Yeah.
There may be a little exaggeration there.
I started walking at like 8 months. I'm the youngest of four, so usually the youngest learns stuff a little faster because they have the siblings. But for my memory, though, my love of movies started when my parents took me to see the re-release of Star Wars: A New Hope. I honestly don't remember much because it came out when I was, 2. But what I do remember is being transported to a galaxy that was, far, far away. And that's really kind of where my love of movies began. And then my love for digging deep into movies came from watching Fight Club for the first time when I was around 12 years old. And I just wanted to understand it so badly that I would sit down with a pad and paper and write down every time I saw it what I took away from it with each subsequent viewing. So in short, I have loved movies for forever, and I don't plan on stopping.
It's really interesting you mentioned Star Wars as kind of that seed because the first Star Wars came out when I was 2, I think. So, right when I was a kid. And so those 3 movies came out. And obviously, I'm an 80s. I grew up in the 80s and Star Wars was the thing, Yeah. And then my kids grew up during the prequels. Like it's kind of interesting, the generational thing that happens with Star Wars. And it just almost doesn't matter when you came into existence. Star Wars was on movie screens at some point, and of course, the way Disney is handling things, that will be forever.
Thank goodness.
We don't have to worry about that anymore. So yeah, very cool. Well, we are absolutely 100% glad you're hanging out with us today for the Sifties Part 1. We're going to get into some of the categories. We're going to start off outside of the movie realm with our favorite non-movie pop culture moments of 2020. So this could be an episode of television. This could be, a podcast, a magazine, or even just a pop culture moment, something that happened, however you want to define it. Now, on these superlatives, we're going to go round robin nomination style. We will each get 3 nominations. You don't have to do them in any order. And then once we have our 9 nominations, we'll chat about them and try to come to a conclusion between the 3 of us for the Sifty winner for that category. So does that make sense? Everybody kind of understand the nomination process? All right. Andrew, why don't you kick us off? What's your first non-movie pop culture moment nomination?
It's going to be kind of local, but it is also obviously national. It's the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
Nice.
If you live in Missouri, it's a big deal. I mean, you didn't stop hearing about that for a very long time. Yeah, it's been a hot minute since they won. Only like 30-ish years. So, but no, it was really cool. It was really cool seeing everybody around me. I like the Chiefs, but obviously I'm a Saints fan. But it was really cool seeing all these people around me who have loved the Chiefs forever, like my family and stuff, seeing them finally get that win.
As a Lions fan, let me just say,
30 years is nothing.
the fact that you have 2 teams that you root for, both still in the playoffs, that's, well, actually, I don't know what happened this weekend. I apologize if somebody lost this weekend. When was the Saints game this weekend?
It's actually tonight.
It is,
right?
it's tonight.
Are you like itching to get through this so you can turn on the pregame?
No, I don't watch the pregame.
Good choice, Ben. What do you got for your first nomination?
So I'm coming swinging out for the fences. I'm going to start with Zack Snyder's Justice League announcement.
Okay.
This was a big deal for me as someone who loves Man of Steel, and I'm a devout lover of BVS, the Ultimate Edition. The theatrical cut, it's okay. It's pretty good. But the Ultimate Edition is far superior. I'm beyond excited to finally see something that I felt like I was going to see back in 2017, but and it was reported several times that it didn't exist. I'm super happy about all the things that the movement, the Zack Snyder release, the Snyder Cut movement has done, donating thousands of dollars to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. At the end of the day, if the movie is bad, it's bad. If it's good, it's good. But what has been done in the lead up to the movie is something incredibly special and goes above and beyond a good or bad movie. So I'm pretty excited as a Snyder fan and as a DC EU film fan to see this movie.
You are one of two friends in my pop culture universe who are really into the DC stuff and like really behind the Snyder Cut stuff. The
other me.
What's that?
Is the other me?
No, I didn't think so. I mean, you love DC, but I didn't know you were
Yeah.
big into like release the Snyder Cut and stuff.
I'm pretty stoked for the Snyder Cut. I guess you could say it's technically 3 movies, but yeah, I'm still stoked for it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm not as interested in it. I didn't like the movies as much as you did, so it's not something. It interests me as a curiosity. And then the whole movement thing is really interesting to me on a conversational level of, like how fan bases because you really kind of saw both the positive and negative of fervent fan bases in that movement, right?
Absolutely.
And being connected with you and some others has been really helpful for me to go, that's not what the movement was about. That's not like the people who were acting in that way and being belligerent and, whatever. That's not what the movement was about, and they were, kind of off set of the movement. But anyways, good choice. I am going to go with my first nomination as I'm going to go with The Last Dance. ESPN's The Last Dance as my first nomination. I
didn't know where to put it, but that's a really good pick.
Yeah, it's for me not a movie. We can have that debate about what makes something a movie.
It was a moment in time we lived through.
Yeah.
I found it just absolutely captivating. The stuff with Jordan himself, looking at the iPad. It's really interesting stuff. And of course, I lived through it. I was a huge Pistons fan, so I was very much a part of all that Pistons Bulls stuff growing up. So I mean that hits me right in my sweet spot because I was like 15 when all that was happening, like it's just so it was a really big deal to me. And there were some things I didn't agree with about the documentary, especially some of the Pistons hate, but I just know that's always going to happen. But anyways, yeah, Last Dance comes in as my first nomination. I will say to our live viewers, if you have choices in these categories, please put them in the chat. We would love to hear them, and maybe before we kind of pick our own, we can, if anybody else who's watching has some, we can mention those too. I always find that fun to kind of go to the community. Andrew, what's your second nomination?
Again, this one's only for me. But I'm going to go with UFC Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker. One of the really good fights of this year, and it was one of the first fights where there was no audience for the UFC. It was a really weird tone because normally you have like thousands of people, screaming and cheering and stuff. It felt very personal, I guess, because it was such a different set of like nobody's talking. You can actually hear the coaches giving tips and stuff to their fighters and stuff. On top of it being an insanely good fight, these guys left it all out in the octagon, and this one obviously is just for me. I actually don't know if Ben likes fights or fighting or anything like that at all. So.
I do. GSP is my favorite of all time. He's retired now, but there has been some tremendous fights to go down this year. I love UFC. I'm a former high school wrestler, so it kind of just
there you go.
Get into that world, kind of nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
All right, Ben, what do you got for your second nomination in this category?
Now, am I allowed to spoil TV shows?
Well, this wouldn't be like a season of TV like for this. It would be more like an episode or a certain scene, and that's fine. If that's the case, then yes, absolutely you can say that.
There is a certain scene that happens in the finale of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I'll just ignite the green. It was just as a lifelong Star Wars fan and as someone who never thought for a second this person would show up in this Star Wars it's not an Elseworld thing, it's connected, but this little Mandalorian universe, I didn't think this character would pop up, and to see him pop up and to see me just jump off the couch, pounding my chest, super excited.
Nice.
Like, I'm pretty sure my wife thought someone was getting murdered. Like, I was
right.
So daggone happy to see it. I'm not ashamed to say that I might have shed a few tears. I was just super excited to see that.
Yeah.
So happy. That was just a glorious moment of television.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a perfect choice for this category. Let's see. My next nomination, I'm going to go with The Good Place finale as my next choice. This is one of my favorite shows, and one of the most difficult things in TV is to stick the landing. And I think they absolutely nailed the end of this show, and I really enjoyed it, really loved it, and it was one of my favorite moments of the year. So that will be my next nomination.
Good call. Good pick.
Andrew, what's your final nomination?
Number 1. I'm gonna go with both Bong Joon-ho / Parasite winning at the Oscars, because I didn't really expect it. Really, I thought, they cleaned up, and I thought that was going to be like, hey, yeah, you're cleaning up, or you're getting all these nominations. That's great. But when it comes to the big one, it's going to go to something like 1917, and especially for director, I swear I thought that 1917 was going to win for directing, with it being the quote unquote long shot.
Mm-hmm.
But no, whenever that movie cleaned up, I just remember literally all of us, in the room, like flipping out, like, oh my gosh, it won. It was such a cool moment, and all three of us got to share it. And I think that was really special that we all got to do that together.
Yeah,
in our fancy, Aaron and I in our fancy wares.
I think that was just you. I don't think I dressed up.
You had a suit on.
Did I?
Yeah.
You had the suit jacket on, I think.
Oh, yes. I
threw the T-shirt
on. Yeah. I threw the jacket on. You're right. Yeah, we looked good, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
That's a fun one, yeah, because you're right. The three of us were together, and come on, vaccines. Come on, vaccines. I would love to do it again this year, but we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
No, that's a good choice. Ben, what do you got for your final nomination?
So mine's a bit of a personal one. I finally got the courage to start my own podcast this year, Ben Davis Movie Podcast. So for me, that was a big deal, a big hill to get over. So I'm gonna say that was probably my favorite pop culture moment. If I can throw that in there, does that count?
That's sure.
Absolutely.
Why not? Listen, if you can turn a nomination into a shameless plug, I'm all for it. That's amazing.
Do it.
Thank you.
I can't complain. I'm actually kind of impressed. That's amazing. That is a real wonderful feeling to know you found something you love producing, you produce it, you do it, you have a good time with it. I know the feeling well, and very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
My final nomination is going to have to be Hamilton on Disney Plus, the Hamilton launch on Disney Plus. Now, this is an interesting one because the category is Best Non-Movie Pop Culture, which this is a movie? I don't know.
It's not. It's a recording of a play.
Right. Yeah. And so I think it does fit here, and it is going to be my final nomination for the category. So there you go. Our 9 nominations. Before we get into it, I'll check out the chat, see if anybody has anything that they were mentioning. Did you guys have any that you wish you could have mentioned from the year?
I have one serious one I could have mentioned, and then one funny one I could have mentioned.
Were they?
The funny one is UFOs are real, apparently. Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah. But the other one, if you remember, my good friend Trevor Brown, T.M. Brown, he released his book, The Gloam, that I gave a shout out to. And I really want to give that one a shout out again. Really good book. Gloam.
Yep. Ben, did you have any others that you might have nominated if you had the chance?
Yeah, Brad Pitt winning his first Oscar.
For
Mostly
acting.
because, yes, for acting. Yeah, because he won, what was it, 2 for producing, right?
Yeah.
One for
Trophy.
12 Years a Slave.
Yeah.
And The Departed, I think.
Yeah, and he was an exec on The Departed, so I don't know if they get Oscars for that.
Yeah, but this was his first one for acting, and he's one of, I think, the most underrated actors in Hollywood, not because of his talent, but because of his looks. A lot of people associate him when they see him like, oh, it's Brad Pitt, he's handsome, but they don't really think that he's actually like a terrific actor.
Yeah.
And he is. I think he's terrific.
Yeah, poor guy. Looks and talent, you know.
Yeah.
What a shame.
Next time he's in town, we got to get him on the show.
I would also mention Survivor Winners at War premiere was one of my favorite moments of the year. Just to have an all-winner season of Survivor is something I've been dreaming about for a long time, and watching it happen was really exciting. And then the BoJack finale as well was another finale that I thought stuck the landing pretty well. That show, man, that show is so existential. Like, I don't even know how it succeeded. Like, I don't know how it even got a second season, let alone, you know, a few seasons. So, BoJack Horseman season finale. In the chat, Jay Bourgeois says, as good as I thought The Mandalorian was, the final arc of the Clone Wars was my favorite. Speaks to nailing the ending too. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Not wrong at all. Great ending.
All right, I'm looking at these 9 nominations. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it comes down to probably the, I'm going to call it the X-Wing showing up, and the Parasite win, Hamilton. I think those 3. Am I right? Were there some other you think might compete for our conversation here?
Yeah. Honestly, I think if we're talking pop culture moment, it's probably Ignite the Green X-Wing is what I'm kind of leaning towards. Because while Parasite, you know, that was something shared by us, and it was a really big deal worldwide, I don't think it was talked about nowhere near to the level as The Mandalorian was.
Yeah, that was just a tremendous moment of television. I will never forget just chilling with my breakfast in front of me, and then immediately as soon as I saw the X-Wing, I just knew who that was. And then when you see the green lightsaber, I just teared up, jumping up and down. I was like Kraglin in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where he starts beating on his chest when he sees the fire. That was me.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was me.
All right. I agree. There you go. The Sifty for best non-movie pop culture moment of 2020 goes to the X-Wing green lightsaber moment of Star Wars Mandalorian. Very nice. That is the best non-movie pop culture moment. All right, let's get into some of the movie superlatives. We'll kick it off with biggest surprise. So this is a movie. You're nominating movies that you feel like there wasn't a lot necessarily expected of, and they exceeded that quite a bit. So there could have been a little bit expected of them, but then they were amazing, or there could be nothing expected of them, and they were really good. Like, you know, kind of that, what was the biggest surprise for you movie-wise? Ben, I'm going to let you kick this category off. What's your first nomination?
My first nomination will be The King of Staten Island.
Okay.
I was expecting to enjoy this film. You know, it's a Judd Apatow film, and I usually really like his movies, but I wasn't fully prepared for just how funny, sincere, and just brutally honest this film was. This was a movie really, it's a look into the life of someone who has experienced trauma and how they deal with that trauma in good and bad ways. You know, Pete Davidson showed me that he wasn't just a funny dude on SNL, but he's someone who could be, in a few years, a really great actor. But honestly, Bill Burr is the one who stole the show. I can't believe not really a lot of people are talking about his performance in this movie in terms of Oscars. I just think he really carried the heavy dramatic scenes of this movie. But I really
Speaking of
enjoyed this movie.
Mandalorian,
Yes, yeah, another great scene in The Mandalorian.
yeah.
But I really enjoyed this movie, its message, and its performances, and I want to see more stories like these.
Nice, good choice. I will have for my first nomination. I'm going to go with The Hunt. I was expecting nothing out of this movie, and I was thoroughly floored by how thoughtful and thought-provoking this movie was, thematically and satirically, as well as the performances. Yeah, this is not the kind of movie I would expect to enjoy, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So The Hunt was one of my biggest surprises of the year. Andrew?
I am going to go with Enola Holmes because I expected nothing from it. I actually expected this to be an atrociously bad movie, but I was surprised with how much fun I had with. I thought it was going to be like, okay, yeah, Henry Cavill's going to come in and like be the saving grace for this. I thought that Enola was a very fun and, well thought out character. I thought that she was just going to be like a shadow of Sherlock, but no, she has her own story arc, her own, her own vices, I guess, being her mother. Like it's an interesting take on that whole family. So yeah, I was surprised with how much I actually enjoyed Enola Holmes.
Great choice.
Great choice.
Ben, what's your second nomination?
Ya Ding Dong.
Hey!
Yes. Listen,
Play Ya Ding Dong.
Yeah, Ya Ding Dong, play it. Eurovision, the story of Fire Saga. Much like a few other movies I saw this year, this isn't the best movie ever made, but it surprised me with how funny and how much of a big heart this movie really has. It's about the power of home and being with the ones you love is the most important thing in life, and that's why this movie surprised me. And not to mention, I love the music in this movie. It's terrific.
This one has grown on me quite a bit. I mean, I think even in our original review, I said I enjoyed it, and but I have watched it once more since then, and I think it's really good. I think this is a really good pick by you. That's definitely one of the surprises of the year. My second nominee. I'm gonna go with The Invisible Man. I was not expecting this movie to be as good as it is, and I think a lot of that is due to Elizabeth Moss. I think she's incredible in it, but a lot of it is also due to the consistency of the theme. They really understand what they're trying to do here. They really understand the message that they're trying to send. And yeah, it's interesting because I saw this in a movie theater, if you remember those. In fact, it was an IMAX, and they had problems at the beginning of the movie where, you know how they have like the pre-movie like music that plays or whatever? That was playing instead of the soundtrack from the movie for the first 10 minutes of this movie. And so it was, and if you remember that opening scene, it's very tense or whatever. And there's like a Beach Boys song, playing over that. I'm like, this is a really interesting choice. I'm not sure I like it, but it's very interesting. But they restarted it, and which I was very thankful for. But even that moment wasn't enough to ruin what I thought was a pretty incredible film. So, and I wasn't expecting it. Yeah, so that's my choice. My second.
That scene with the knife in the restaurant. That's one of the most shocking scenes of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
That scene, the one with the paint, got me.
Oh yeah,
sure.
It's a good movie.
There's a couple moments in that movie that might be fighting next week for best movie moment as we kind of talk about those choices. So
yeah, I might have shown my hand a little bit too.
Andrew, what's your second nomination?
I'm gonna go with The Prom because
interesting.
I was actually kind of mad whenever I found out that was the movie we're supposed to be giving our review for. It's like, I don't want to do this. Aaron knows I hate musicals, and this is like the most musical that I could ever musical. And I started watching it, and I was like, oh, I was right. This movie is horrible. And then as the movie progressed, I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. I'm actually enjoying a lot of these characters. By the end of that movie, I was crying, and I loved it. I was so shocked by the transition that movie made that I did not expect it. I think it's called a Chaotic Heart. I think is the name of the big ballad for the young girl to sing.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It was such a great song. It was like empowering and beautiful, and yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. So
Nice.
it surprised the crap out of me.
Nice.
Awesome.
Ben, what's your third nomination?
Third nomination is going to Sonic the Hedgehog.
It's a good choice.
Did we just get a good video game movie? Did we?
I think we might have, yeah.
Full disclosure, I had very little expectations going into this movie because it's Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's number one, it's a video game movie, and the only decent one that I've enjoyed, there's been two. Tomb Raider, the one that came out in either 2016 or 2017, and then you had Rampage, which is just, it's not a great movie, but I found it enjoyable. But this one, I was really entertained by it. Like, it's funny, it's charming, and inherently very sweet. Ben Schwartz was great as the voice of Sonic, and I thought Jim Carrey gave probably his best comedic performance in several years. Like, again, this movie just really shocked me with how entertained I was.
It's a good choice. It's a very good choice indeed. My final nomination is going to go to, and this feels weird to say, as beloved as this movie I believe is, and as many people who think this movie is awesome, I think it's hard to remember how no one really knew much about it, how it wasn't a lot expected of it. But I'm going with Palm Springs as
that's mine too. That's mine.
One of my big. It's hard to remember at this point, but there wasn't a ton expected out of that movie, and now it's like competing for Oscars. Like, you know, it's legitimate has an FYC campaign going. So, I had to put Palm Springs in here for a nomination. Did I steal yours, Andrew?
No, we share it. Yeah, it was my number one as well that I was going to nominate because.
Do you have another one you want to throw in there for your final nomination?
I didn't really expect much from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but you know how much I love that movie. I should have, August, I should have known that I was going to, love it. But as the movie progressed, I'm like, oh, this is going to be something special. Like, I thought it was going to be good, but then it became something really good. But no, Palm Springs, for me, that's the obvious choice. And also, Scott Pilgrim is not a video game adaptation; it's a comic book adaptation for the chat.
And Andrew has become distracted by falsitudes in the chat. It's bound to happen every once in a while.
Yeah.
Speaking of the chat, since we have our nominations out there, I will say Aaron in the chat says, for me, Borat subsequent movie film, wasn't a fan of the original, but after the second one revisited it and loved them both. Other ones I might have mentioned, Birds of Prey was another one I didn't expect necessarily a lot out of and really enjoyed. And The Old Guard was another one on Netflix that
The Old Guard was surprising. That was a surprising movie.
So those were a couple more for me. Do you guys have any other kind of honorable mentions that didn't get nominated you wanted to throw out there?
Well, oddly enough, I had Palm Springs on here as well. But I figured one of you guys would probably end up taking it. Project Power is another one that I was really, it's not great, but I really enjoyed it. In particular, the performance by Dominique Fishback. She really stills the movie. And of course, that's really it. Yeah, that's all of the ones I had.
Well, it sounds like we kind of
all agree.
Yeah, we kind of all agree then. Palm Springs? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. The 2020 Sifty for biggest surprise film of the year goes to Palm Springs. There you go. All right, let's move into biggest letdown. This is the opposite. This is the one where you had expectations that were severely received. So it could be something you expected a lot of and did not meet those. It could be something you expected a little of and was really awful, whatever the case may be. It's my turn to kick it off, and I'm going to go with The Midnight Sky as my first biggest letdown. George Clooney looked like it was going to be gorgeous space stuff, pretty incredible, and then it was just such a mess and such a difficult watch. And so that's my first biggest letdown nomination.
Yeah, it was right there. I'm right there with you. It's not a good movie. It's not. I mean, there's there's good parts in it, but overall, I felt like they were trying to cram two movies into one, and they just didn't. There was no cohesiveness.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is I definitely shouldn't see this movie.
No, you can.
I don't know. I'm the weirdo that's like, go watch the bad movies. Like, like especially if you already have, HBO Max. It's only going to be on there another week or so. So yeah. Andrew, I think you're up second.
Yeah. I'm just going to say right now, two of the movies that you guys had in your surprisingly goods are the ones in my letdown movies. So I'm going to kick it off with Project Power.
Fair enough.
I thought it was such an awesome concept for a movie, a pill that gives you temporary powers. I mean, that's such an interesting and unique take on the whole plethora of superhero movies and stuff that we have out. But it was like, oh, this is refreshing and unique and original, but at the same time, and the effects were phenomenal. I was shocked by how good those effects were, but I thought the story there was no driving force in that story for me to just really be invested. So that's why I was kind of let down by that one.
Ben, what's your first nomination? Biggest letdown?
You guys are not going to like me for this. The Old Guard.
Oh, come on.
Look,
right. Fair enough.
This movie let me down. I love Charlize Theron as an actress, especially as an action star. She's incredible. The physicality she brings to her roles in action is it's unparalleled. I think the only person you can compare it to really is Keanu Reeves, but even she might be a little bit better. But this movie was just so bland for me. I felt like it was more of a music video more than a movie. And the action was great and it was really physical, but I just didn't buy into the characters. So it didn't really lend itself for me buying into the movie as a whole.
All right, mark it down. 2:13 on January 17th, 2021 is the first moment Ben was wrong on the SIFPOP podcast. So, yay, congratulations. Everybody has their first incorrect opinion.
Yay.
Good pat on the back.
Actually, there are many people who agree with you, probably more than agree with us, Ben.
Now, did you see the Old Guard before or after the hype? Because
I saw it like the opening weekend when it first started streaming.
Sure.
I watched it on a Saturday evening, I think. So there was still a little bit of hype surrounding it, but not to the peak it became afterward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can have an effect on it too. Like whenever you see a movie and you're like, yeah, that was okay. But then you hear this wave of love come for you. Like, guys, that wasn't that great of a movie. And it just kind of, it's not that you dig down in your beliefs, but you're like, I just wish I could have seen the movie everybody else saw.
Exactly.
So I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move on to my second nomination. I'm going to put Rebecca here. This had all the makings to me
I hate that movie.
of an interesting remake. And I, of course, love the original. I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. Yeah. And, the people involved, although, let's not go into detail on Armie Hammer right now, but just saying, like I've always appreciated his acting and was ready for that to be amazing. And this is just a slog. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful slog, but it is a slog, and it doesn't do anything interesting with the material at all. And so that was a real letdown for me.
Yeah, and especially from such a tasty actor, it's.
I see what you did there.
I'm at a loss. What happened? Well,
we're not
going to. You'll have to look that one.
I'll look it up after the show. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a tasty boy.
All right, Andrew, what is your second nominee?
This is first I struck towards Ben. Now I'm gonna be striking towards you, Aaron, with your
Oh, no.
surprisingly good. I'm going with The Hunt
Yeah,
because
I wondered if you might.
it's just it felt so ridiculously one-sided in its political satire, which it's fine if you want to go down that route because it's a thin line you get to walk whenever you have one political system murdering another one, and the satiricalness is pretty one-sided. I think like, yeah, you could do it, just kind of be fair with the punches you throw, like show how both sides are equally stupid, and I didn't really get that. Don't get me wrong, I think there are parts of this movie that are hilarious. The opening set, which is like what, 15 minutes, and it might be a one shot, I can't remember, but I remember that opening set going, oh, this is going to be something great, but it kind of, after that, I was just kind of let down a little bit.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and we've had this conversation before, so we don't need to necessarily have it again. But it definitely hit me different than it hit you. All right, Ben, what is your second nomination?
Doolittle. I really enjoyed the trailer for this movie. I might be the only person, but a dragon farted in Robert Downey Jr.'s face in this movie.
And it's a key plot point, by the way.
Yeah, like it's the driving force, no pun intended, of the end.
Right.
I have no idea what the director was going for in this movie.
Yeah.
It didn't really translate well to live action. I think it might have been better suited to be an animated movie. But I left it's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but I just left the movie just kind of astonished that movie got made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, it would be here for me too if I had expected anything from it, which I did not at all.
I'm with Aaron.
Yeah.
All right, I will be the one to pull the trigger on Wonder Woman 1984. I'll throw that in the nominees.
It's my number one it's my number one as well. So, Aaron, we just keep sharing the same number ones.
Well, I'm not doing I'm not ranking them at all. I'm just nominating stuff. So, but yeah, I can't. It's the disappointment is extreme, especially considering that I did enjoy the first movie, and it certainly has its flaws. But this is one of the worst movies ever made. Like, this is such a bad film. And I don't. Well, I think it deserves it. Like, it's.
Yeah.
Because even if you give it credit for wanting to be as ridiculous as it is, like, let's say, like, you can go, okay, this is the movie Wonder Woman 1984 wanted to be. It wanted to be cheesy. It wanted to be over the top. It wanted to be ridiculous. It wanted to have silly villains. Beyond that, the structure is wrong. The way the movie doesn't trust the audience is so bad. It puts everything, it makes everybody say everything the movie is trying to make them feel. I always go back to the moment where she, starts having her, Kristen Wiig starts having her powers, and she steps over the puddle in high heels or whatever. And it's like, okay, we get it. She's now good in high heels where she wasn't before, but there just has to be a janitor there who's like, wow, you're sure good in those high heels. Like, it's just like, it's just, the movie is full of that kind of stuff. And it's just, it is a mess, and was a huge disappointment for me. And Ben, I know you enjoyed it, and that's cool. I'm glad you were able to find some stuff in it, but
your criticisms are valid, though, is the thing. Because as much as I did enjoy the movie, but it is tonally inconsistent to the first movie. It felt more tonally like it fit inside the same universe as Aquaman, but it's different because Aquaman's first movie established a tone for its universe. Wonder Woman's first movie established its tone and then completely abandoned that tone, and it felt more in line with something like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films or the Richard Donner Superman movies, which I'm not a fan of. I love the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, but not the Richard Donner Superman. So I understand your criticisms, and I even agree with a lot of them. So
Yeah,
I
we
can see
haven't
why.
even we haven't even started on the she took advantage of a human body that without its consent or knowledge, because there was a different human soul inside of it, part of this plot that they decided to do. Like, what a weird and horrible choice on how to make that happen. So
Yeah, it
yeah, that
won't
was
age well. Similar to how Big doesn't with that part doesn't age
right,
well.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like an instantaneous doesn't age well. This is like the next day. It's like, well, this hasn't aged well.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, what's another nominee for you?
Well, 84 would have been my pick, but I'm gonna throw out Mank
Oh,
because
interesting. I love Mank.
I found it to be pretentious in its stylization, in the story it was telling. I think that the stylization is good, but the actual like the way that lines are delivered and stuff like that, I felt like it was trying to make a story happen from a like the story is trying to tell isn't that interesting, yet they tried to make it be interesting with the quote unquote witty dialogue back and forth between Gary Oldman and the rest of the people. I think that the way it's shot in black and white and the way that the camera is set up, it feels like it was how a movie back in the day would have been shot. Like
Right.
there's no fancy like a camera work or anything like that. It feels very grounded, as if they actually used the equipment from the day to make this happen. But I didn't care for Mank's character. Charlie Dance is fine as everything. It's just a movie I didn't get invested in as I was watching it, and I expected really good things from that movie.
Ben, what is your final nominee?
My final nominee is Mulan.
Excellent choice.
The trailer for this movie was incredible, and actually I saw it at the Rise of Skywalker premiere in IMAX, and I got chills watching it on that big screen. But this movie left so much to be desired. I mean, the production and costume design are great, especially I really like the cinematography in the film. But the rest of the movie lacked any real personality and emotion that was in the original animated classic. Not to mention the action was really, really choppy. Overall, this was probably the biggest disappointment of the year for me, especially considering I paid $29.99 for it. So,
yeah,
big disappointment.
All right, there you go. There are 9 nominees in the chat. Buck Reviewer says A Quiet Place 2. It didn't even come out. That was a letdown.
That was a big letdown.
Aaron says the Deathstroke animated film takes the cake for him. Also throws New Mutants in there as a strong contender. What do you guys? Did you guys have any other, ones that you might have nominated?
Rhythm Section.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
Yeah.
that movie was awful.
You want to talk about it's one of the worst movies of all time.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting a lot out of it. That's why it's not on here. But yeah, that movie is terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't expect much from that movie, but I didn't expect it to be as bad as it is. It is
right. I expected
atrocious.
nothing from it, and it still didn't meet those expectations.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, like the trailer again sold me. It hooked me. I love Blake Lively. I think she's a really underrated actress. Yeah. But this movie was just so cold and boring. Yeah, is the best way to put it. Just very cold and boring.
We've identified the problem, Ben. It's the trailers. You got to stop watching those things. They're bad for you, man.
I guess so. I guess I got to start following your lead on that.
That's right. Right.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, Ben.
I would also mention Artemis Fowl. That was on my most anticipated list at one point. And
wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's really bad. And Irresistible is another one. I don't know if you remember that one. Was a huge letdown. That's the Jon Stewart produced movie with
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell. Yeah, and lots of other amazing people. There's no way that movie should be as bad as it is. And it's not terrible, but it is kind of terrible. And yeah, so that would be on there as well. Any others from you guys?
That's it for me.
Shout outs. All right, let's do it. What are you guys thinking? Ben, I think you know where we lean, but is that something you're willing to go go with, or do you have an alternate that you want to push for?
I feel like that has to take the cake. As much as I enjoy the film, I acknowledge it has a lot of issues. But I do enjoy the film a lot. I think that it's very hopeful. I think Gal Gadot is incredible as Wonder Woman. I even love Kristen Wiig and Pedro Pascal as the villains. But there's a lot of issues in those movies, and you guys are right on a lot of them, and I agree with you on a lot of them. So I feel like if you guys both have that as your number one, that has to be it. That has to trump my love for it. So,
all right. Well, there you go. The 2020 Sifty for biggest letdown of the year is Wonder Woman 1984. All right. Let's move into the overrated category, which we like to call movies that you didn't get. So these are the movies that it seemed like everybody else got, but you didn't quite get it. So let's go ahead and do our nominations. Andrew, we're back to starting with you.
Okay, I used my list, and I wasn't going off of everybody that I know. Really, I'm going off of critical love for the movie. Is really what I'm going. Yeah. So these are movies I firmly hate, but they're all three of these are getting like huge Oscar buzz.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
The first one is Let Them All Talk, the Meryl Streep movie where they're on a boat for 2 hours talking about how Meryl Streep writes books, and another person's like, "You wrote books about me? Give me money." And people, you especially, you love this movie.
I do love this movie.
Lucas Hedges is, I would say he's like a saving grace for this movie. I think he gives a really grounded yet interesting performance. But I didn't care. I tried so hard to care about this movie, but it didn't work for me.
I will say, as we kind of get into this, by the way, these next two categories are the hardest to agree on because, by their definition, the other two people are likely to disagree with you. So these are interesting ones. But yes, Let Them All Talk. We've had our disagreement on it. I think it's great. But yeah, certainly fits this category for you. So that's a fine nomination. Ben, what are you nominating first?
Aaron, you're gonna probably fire me.
It's this category. It's just this category. Yeah.
It's Soul.
Soul.
Yes, it is. So here's the thing. I still enjoy this.
I'm sorry, Ben's feed has been cut. I'm not sure what happened.
He said Soul, Aaron. He's right. I like the movie a lot, but it's overrated.
Yes, I agree with that. See, like, I really enjoy this movie, and the score is just absolutely outstanding. It's Trent Reznor and what's the other guy?
Atticus Ross.
Yes, it's an amazing score. But this movie left me wanting more. Again, I still really enjoyed it, but I was expecting this movie to hit me a lot harder than it did. Like the scene where the punch is supposed to happen, it felt like more of a whiffed punch. I still felt it, but not as hard as something else I'll probably get to later on our nominations.
Okay. I kind of blanked out there for a second, so I'll just assume Ben had a nominee, and we'll just move on from there.
His nominee was Soul, Aaron.
I've already forgotten. I'm sorry, you're breaking up, Andrew. I can't quite hear what's going on. All right, so I think it is my turn then for my nominee, and now I just want to pick Ben's favorite movie. What was Ben's favorite movie from the
Wonder Woman?
Oh no.
No, I have nominees like Andrew that are very critically lauded that I just don't understand, and there's always at least one of these, usually more each year, where I'm just like, that's a bad movie, guys. Why do you all love that? The first one I'm going with is The Personal History of David Copperfield. Lots of awards buzz for this one, lots of love among my fellow critics, and I was bored out of my mind. And that just happens every once in a while. So that is my first nominee.
Yeah.
Andrew, what's your second?
I haven't seen that one, actually. My second nomination is actually one I know Aaron and I firmly agree is a terrible, terrible movie, but critics, for some stupid reason, love this movie. I'm gonna go with She Dies Tomorrow.
Oh, good choice. Good choice. Yeah.
I hate this movie. It's my least
horrible.
favorite movie of the year. Least favorite movie of the year. You go online and you look on like Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. It is getting like a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's getting Best Picture nomination or contention and stuff like that. I'm like, how? This movie is literally in the top worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Nothing.
Is it worse than
happens in
Rhythm
this movie.
Section?
Yes, it is worse than Rhythm Section.
No, it's
Yes,
not
it
worse
is.
than Rhythm Section.
Yes, it is. I firmly believe this is the worst movie of the year, and right in front of actually Rhythm Section, which I have as the second worst movie of the year. But nothing happens in this movie. Literally nothing. There's no beginning to this movie. It just drops you in, and there's really no end. It's just one big second act.
Yeah,
that is boring.
She Dies
That
Tomorrow.
sounds dreadful.
Yeah, it's a decent nomination, and lots of people love it. Lots of people love it, but not these people. All right, Ben, what's your second nominee?
Borat subsequent movie film.
I also had that in my nominees, and I just blown away by how many people love this movie. But go ahead, talk about it.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I laughed a few times in this movie.
Of course.
But not nearly as much as I wanted to. The debutante ball sequence had me in stitches. That junk was hilarious. But to me, it made me feel more sorry for the state of our country. And it didn't really make me laugh as much as it made me cringe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't what I wanted it to be, which I get, it's not supposed to be what you want it to be, but it didn't work for me as much.
Yeah.
Some people like cringe humor. It's not for me. Like I don't get that. Oh, it's so awkward. And then you start giggling about it. It's just, it makes me feel uncomfortable, and I don't like feeling uncomfortable.
Exactly.
I would add, there are things I really respect about this movie. I really respect the flexibility to do what they did during the time that they did it, and to figure out how to bring it around in the way that they did, where there's actually an interesting story structure to this movie that they didn't know it was going to have when they started. I think that's really smart. I respect that a lot. I respect the character work that both of them do in this movie. Is really impressive improvisational character work. So there's a lot I respect about this movie, but I didn't enjoy this movie. And it's just, I don't get the awards praise for it. I get the idea of, boy, I respect this movie, and isn't that an interesting movie? And boy, I laughed a lot. I get all that stuff. I don't get the awards buzz for the new Borat. So yeah, that was definitely in my overrated as well.
I don't either. And on top of that, I feel like Borat, the first film, was so captivating when it came out and really ingrained itself in the pop cultural zeitgeist. This film hasn't done that. I haven't really heard many people talk about it besides outside of the awards circle.
Mm-hmm.
Like my friends, my movie buddies that I talk to, they don't really talk about it as much anymore. So I just don't think it's going to hold up as well.
For my official second nomination, I'm going to do Shirley for this. I don't know if either of you have seen this. This is Elizabeth Moss and is a representation of true life author and kind of what she went through. Again, lots to respect about what's going on here. I just found it to be a real slog of a movie to try to get through, and I did not enjoy the experience. So, it makes me sad that Elizabeth Moss is kind of like has two performances that people are like, what about Shirley? What about Invisible Man? And it's like, no, Invisible Man is the performance. Like, I don't know. It's kind of one of those deals where, I wish they could focus on what I think is the better one, but that's just my opinion. Andrew, what is your third nominee?
I know Aaron and I disagree on this one, but I have a feeling this is going to win Best Picture, and it makes me so mad. It makes me so mad that this is going to win Best Picture. First Cow.
You think First Cow is going to win Best Picture?
Dude, if you go online right now and you look like a front runners to win Best Picture, First Cow is the one that is like up there.
Interesting. That's not what I've seen, but that's fine. I like the movie, so
I hate this movie so much. Not as much as She Dies Tomorrow.
Or Rhythm Section.
Or Rhythm Section.
Yeah. But when it goes for overrated, and from what I've seen, I think that whenever I saw like, oh, what's the one that's going to win Best Picture? And I see First Cow everywhere on that list, and it's like as a front runner, I'm like, how? Nothing happens. It's they steal milk and make tasty biscuits.
That's something. That's not nothing.
And how about that opening 15-minute pan of a
freighter
river freight going down river where
sets the pace for you, doesn't it? It says
it does set the pace of like where you think that your computer's broke while you're watching it, like what is this it, or
did I accidentally turn on a screensaver? What is going on here?
It's
yeah. So this is another movie I haven't seen this year, so I'm interested because you seem to really like it, Aaron. But
I do really like it.
To not like it at all.
But I had the same experience Andrew did with that first scene, which is, what is this? Like, what is going on? Like, the first shot literally is just watching a freighter go from one end of the screen to the other very slowly for, I'm going to say, at least a minute or two, like a full minute or two.
No, it's way longer than that. It's way longer than that. I'm going to look it up.
It's longer than that because you're not used to it. But yeah, no, the movie is setting you up to go, look, we're not in a hurry. We're going to show you this story of what happened here, and we're not in a hurry to do it. And I just think there's so much humanity in this movie, and the relationship at the center of this movie was really interesting to me, and really, I don't know. And I wanted to eat the little fried dough treats too. So there's that as well. But yeah, I get the love for First Cow. I totally get it. But I did have a similar experience.
All right, that was mine.
Ben, what's your final nominee?
My final nominee is, again, another movie that I like, just not as much. The Invisible Man.
Ooh.
So I still really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed much to what Aaron talked about, what you talked about with the messaging of this movie and what the message it's trying to convey and get across. That was a very powerful message, and they did an excellent job telling it. Lee Linnell was fantastic directing this movie with the tension that he creates with nothing in the camera. You don't know if he's there, if he's not there. It's just incredible what he was able to do with nothing but space. Elizabeth Moss gives a terrific performance in this. She's great in everything, but this one in particular. But there's just some questions in this movie, especially in regards to the end of the film, that I just couldn't brush off. And what they're able to do at the end of the film. There's just a lot of questions I had that didn't really sit well with me that I can't really go into without giving away spoilers for the movie. So I'll leave it at that.
I totally agree with you, by the way. The end of this movie is not great. There's a lot about the end of this movie that doesn't make sense, and in fact is actively counterproductive to the movie itself. So no, I absolutely agree with you on the ending. I just felt like the rest of it was enough for me to kind of look past that ending.
It's still a really, really good movie. It's just that ending I couldn't brush it off.
I mean, it's not Edge of Tomorrow bad ending, but it's not great. It does not stick the landing.
Yeah.
My final nominee for a movie that I didn't get is The Devil All the Time, which has a decent Rotten Tomatoes score. Critics seem to think it's pretty good. I just thought it was, I don't know, it was torturous. It felt like a movie that was intended to make me feel awful. And in general, I don't like feeling awful. So, well done movie. It's just kind of one of those things. So.
Yeah, it's a gross movie. It is a gross movie. It is I guess you could call it like a gothic tale. Would you guys label it as such?
Yeah.
Like it's just designed to not make you feel very good. And I can agree with that. It's not a movie I'll ever revisit again, but it's one that I enjoyed the performances of it. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
All right, there you go. We have apparently only 8 nominees for overrated. I only see 8 on my list. I don't know. Somebody must have missaid one or something, but
Let's see.
let's see. Let Them All
Let's
Talk.
see.
Personal History of David Copperfield. I'm waiting for them to get the joke. She Dies Tomorrow. Borat subsequent movie film. Shirley First Cow. Invisible Man.
I get it.
Devil, all the...
Just
It took
got
me
it.
a second. It took me a second.
Right over the head.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at it. I think really She Dies Tomorrow and Borat are probably the 2 that we have some semblance of agreement on.
Yeah.
Of the ones that have been mentioned. You guys want to make a strong case for either one of those?
I think we've all seen Borat.
Yeah.
That would make sense. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Wow, we're
Just as
agreeing
long as
so
everybody knows She Dies Tomorrow is awful.
All right, the official 2020 Sifty for movie we just didn't get goes to Borat.
Soul.
Subsequent movie film. Man, Andrew's audio just keeps going out. I apologize for that. I don't know why that's happening.
It's
All
weird.
right, let's move on to the movie the movie that they didn't get. Something we love that doesn't seem like everybody else does. You could also call this underrated as far as the category goes. Ben gets to start us off on this one.
Alrighty. I'll start us off with my favorite movie of the year. That is Onward. I know this movie is getting some love, but honestly, it's not as much as I thought it should get. Onward is a deeply personal movie for me in many ways. It's I not only adore this movie, but to me, it might be Pixar's best. At least for me, it's
Sure.
a story of fathers and sons, and the relationships they have and the impact they can have on each other. I was expecting, goodness from this film because it's Pixar, and Pixar does nothing but put out good movies except for Cars. But not to this level of greatness. When that scene that I was talking about in Soul, where I felt like I was supposed to have that punch and it didn't hit me as much, this was a knockout blow. I left this theater sobbing when I left the theater. This was one of the last movies I saw in theaters, and it's such an incredible movie. I love this movie.
Okay, I like you again, Ben. You're welcome. You're welcome back on the show. No, you're absolutely right. It's interesting to think of it as underrated because you're right. It does get a lot of love, but yeah, it is kind of a little bit forgotten this time of year. So. My first nominee, I have several possible nominees that we have already mentioned. I'm going to, in other categories, I'm going to nominate first the one we haven't. And I know I'm on an island on this one, as is the case with this category often. But I'm going to go with The Witches, Anne Hathaway version of The Witches, Roald Dahl's The Witches. I know that it is a very personal pick. I love the material, and I thought it was another good look at that material, and really a more accurate look at that material than I've seen before. And I just thought Anne Hathaway was incredible, and people don't like this movie. So there you go. The Witches is my first nominee. Andrew, what's yours?
I'm going to go with a little film starring everyone's favorite little wizard, Daniel Radcliffe, Guns Akimbo.
Oh, okay.
It's one I've been dying to see.
It's fascinating. It's very violent. It's a very violent movie, but it's the violence done in that humoristic sense of it's so ridiculous that it's not even realistic. It's satirical how violent a movie can be. It's interesting. I think that Daniel Radcliffe has given actually a pretty good performance here. But honestly, I think Samara Weaving is given a great performance. There's some fun, interesting stuff going on in this movie with people, and it kind of feels like a Black Mirror episode a little bit with how some people will watch things just because they're not supposed to. That sense of how I don't know what you would call it, like that adrenaline rush of watching something that makes you feel like you're breaking the rules or something like that. Even if it's, something as horrific as watching people try and kill each other, but I think this movie's funny. It's a really interesting watch, and I don't think a lot of people have either seen it or really understood what the movie was trying to do.
I'm sold. I'm watching it tonight.
Oh, there you go. Good.
You should. It's good. It's really good.
What's your second nomination, Ben?
Third.
The second.
Oh, was it? Oh, yeah, we went around. My bad.
You're good. So I'm going to go with The Way Back. Again, another movie that got pretty good critical praise, but I don't think enough people are talking about how good Ben Affleck is in this movie. This was, I think, a career best from someone who has given us an incredible career. Now he's definitely had misses, but recently in the past couple of years, he's been on a stride. And this movie was just an emotional gut punch that left me shattered, yet really, really inspired. This is my number 4 favorite movie of 2020, and I just wanted to show it some love on the show.
I like it. I really enjoyed The Way Back. Part of that a lot of it, in fact, has to do with my love of basketball. And there's definitely some really interesting coaching, basketball kind of fun stuff in there that's going to appeal to me. But yeah, The Way Back is a good choice. My second nominee is one we've already mentioned before, but I do believe it is underrated, and that is Eurovision Song Contest.
Nice.
This is one that hasn't gotten a lot of love critically, got passed over pretty quickly, and like I said, I've seen it a couple times, and I think it's actually really good. It's really fun and does some interesting things plot-wise. Somehow in a movie this ridiculous makes you care about the characters, which is an interesting trick to pull off. So yeah, I think Eurovision is better than most are saying it is. So that is my second nominee. Andrew, what is yours?
I'm going to go with, by the way, first off on Eurovision, we haven't even talked about how the music is shockingly similar to what you would hear on Eurovision. Like,
right?
If you've ever seen, it sounds exactly like the stuff you would hear in that contest.
Yeah.
My second nomination is going to be The Croods: A New Age, because I think a lot of people just either, I don't know if it's underrated or people just assume that it's just as bad as the first one. Honestly, and I say this without any hyperbole, I think The Croods: A New Age is the funniest movie of the year. I think there's enough gags that I was laughing in the theater more than like all the 7-year-old kids whose parents that took see. I was the one laughing the most in the theater.
Nice.
It was just such a fun movie, and it was an interesting story dynamic of letting go, the difference between privacy and, a group mentality, and how there's pros and cons to both. It's just a fun movie. Oh, and Punch Monkey, speaking Punch Monkey is so funny. I want to learn how to speak Punch Monkey. So
not with me. I do not volunteer to be your teacher.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I think The Croods: A New Age is one that is definitely underrated.
Good call. Good call. Ben, your final nominee.
So this is another one that came out, and it was the first movie that came out for post-pandemic, and it was supposed to, save cinema. Tenet. This is a movie that kind of generated a lukewarm response, but I'm fascinated with this movie. It's big, it's epic, and it's just a smart blockbuster movie that I think history will be kind to. I can easily see in like 5 years there being a bunch of think pieces about how awesome this movie is.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I would have never put it in this category because I've heard pretty much praise for this movie. I haven't heard a lot of negative about it. Maybe
Ben's right, actually. Yeah, there's a lot of lukewarm. Like, people are saying this is like a mediocre / lower end Nolan film, which I find shocking. But Ben's right. Yeah, there's if you go on IMDb, it has like a 7 or something like that. It's not even really that highly praised.
I mean, it's it's got a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 76% audience score.
But, I mean, that's pretty low for a Nolan
It's
movie that's this
yeah,
good.
for a Nolan movie. Yeah, exactly. That's just it was like a Nolan's James Bond movie. This is what this was, and it was just I had a lot of fun with it. I didn't unfortunately get to see it on the big screen, but it was just as good at home, which was a lot of fun. No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. Trust me, it wasn't.
This will be one that, when they do a re-release of it, hopefully I'll be able to get to see it.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was better at home because I got to use subtitles. The nominee that I have next is Sonic. This is another one we've mentioned before. I think it's underrated. I don't understand why it didn't get even more love than it got. We mentioned the amazing performances, Jim Carrey back doing Jim Carrey stuff, all that. So Sonic the Hedgehog is my final nominee. Andrew, finish us off in this category.
I'm going to go with Bill and Ted Face the Music as underrated because it doesn't really have that high of praise, but I remember really, really thinking this was a fun movie. I think that the daughter's dynamic was predictable, in the way it was going to, transition and stuff. I knew that's how it was going to pan out, but it still was fun. Seeing Will Sadler again as Death. Anthony Carrigan as Dennis Caleb McCoy, the robot, he stole the movie for me. He was great. I found it to be an interesting concept of, how, I don't know if it's just my personal love for the first two movies that whenever this one came along, I'm like, I don't know if something in me was like, no, I have to love this one or not. But I found it interesting of these guys. When did the second one come out? In the 90s, they were told, you guys are going to write the song that's going to save the world. And now all this time later, they still haven't written the song that was going to save the world. This movie does not stick the landing. It does not. But as the movie progresses through time and seeing their alternate selves, like how they see their alternate selves in jail as homeless bums or in the retirement center, where they're saying that goodbye to themselves in the retirement center, it's not only hilarious, but there's also something very meaningful happening there. I think that there's actually some really good stuff going on in this movie.
I think it's a fair choice. All right. That rounds out our 9 nominees. Any others that you might have wanted to have mentioned if you had the chance?
I wanted to throw in Greenland.
Fair enough.
This movie shocked me. I was expecting it to be, Geostorm, but what we got was something more similar to Castaway, although not as good.
Right?
Yeah, it's not as good as Castaway, but I really did enjoy this movie, and I respect its sense of restraint and wanting to be more of a personal movie about a marriage.
Huh. I just I never saw it because I just assumed it was 2012 part 2.
No, it's actually pretty decent. I wouldn't get your expectations up like super high, but no, it's a good watch for sure.
But if I were to watch it, I wouldn't be like, ugh.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Okay.
But then again, you didn't like First Cow, so what do I know?
Oh yeah, First Cow and Greenland. Those are the two
very
movies.
Similar, very similar movies.
What are the nominations, Aaron?
Project Power we had talked about before. That was the only other one I thought about possibly nominating as underrated. This could be an interesting one. This could be our most interesting category. Onward, The Witches, Guns Akimbo, The Way Back, Eurovision Song Contest, The Croods: A New Age, Tenet, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Bill and Ted Face the Music. Where can we land and agree on the underrated movie of the year?
Tenet.
I just don't. It's a hard one for me. I mean, certainly my favorite movie on that list, by far. I just would never have thought of it as underrated. I don't know. It just feels like people love that movie.
A lot of people that I talk to, it's either they're like us and they really love the movie, or they just don't like it. It's very divisive in that sense. But there is some chatter about it not being as good. But like you said, though, it still has a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a really good rating, but it's really low for a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah. I think out of all of Nolan's movies, it's the least accessible which is saying something whenever you have a movie, when you have movies like Inception or Interstellar. I think that even after several viewings of this movie, it's still difficult to follow. And I think that I think as time has progressed, Nolan has been trying to really push the limit of how much an audience is able to comprehend before it just gets too ridiculous. And he may have stepped over the line here a bit. But it's still, if nothing else, if you're like putting all that aside, performances all around are great. Visuals are stellar. And I don't think that it's a very, people say that it's slow paced. It has like a lot of, Washington going from here to here to here to talk to people and doing the hand sign and stuff like that. I think people forget about some of the subtle, interesting performance set pieces in that movie. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't get the meh approach or appeal of this movie. How people just think it's just okay. I think that it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do here because, really, most of the movies we have listed here don't have awful ratings on Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that. I think, The Witches is a 49%, which even that is, it's not like terrible, but it's.
Yeah, Aaron, I'm going to tell you, I hate that movie.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, I'm looking at it, I'm going, maybe we do choose Tenet. It's just a weird selection to me to say that's the most underrated movie of the year when it's in my top 5 movies of the year. You know what I mean? That's
mine too.
In a lot of people's.
Yeah, it's my number 2 favorite film of the year.
So it's just it's a little strange to me, but I think that's where we have to land unless you guys have something else.
Can you list them off one more time?
Sure. Yeah. Onward, The Witches, Guns Akimbo, The Way Back, Eurovision Song Contest, The Croods: A New Age, Tenet, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Bill and Ted Face the Music.
What about Onward? Well, everybody loves Onward, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if it's just getting overshadowed by Soul, to where no, this is actually an underrated movie. There's a difference between underrated and forgotten.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely not underrated. It's an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's certified fresh, 95% audience score. If we were to eliminate Tenet, we'd definitely have to eliminate Onward for the same reason. Croods is like a 62%, Sonic is like a 62%, Eurovision's like a 60%. So, they're all kind of, up there. I think Tenet may be the way to go, as weird as it is. Based on our nominees. And again, this was always going to be a difficult category. So yeah. Well, there you go. I guess we're doing it. The official Sifty for a movie that they didn't get goes to Tenet. And
I hope that doesn't come off as pretentious, because it is such a confusing movie that for us to say that it's underappreciated. Oh, you just don't get it.
No, that's not what that means.
Yeah,
no,
but you're right.
Not.
Yeah. I want to be clear. If you don't get that movie, join the club. There's a lot of people out there, as even me included, who still don't fully understand that movie. But from what I do understand about the movie, I know what is being done is nothing short of a masterpiece. So.
Yeah, the first time I saw Tenet, I had to turn it off because I was getting frustrated because I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. I had to then recharge my batteries, turn it on with the subtitles, and I was like, okay, I still follow this movie, and I think I get it, but it's going to take me a couple more times to watch it to where I feel like I can fully understand and grasp what Christopher Nolan was going for. I just know that I just love this movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. Before we head on to our best TV of the year, just a huge thank you to our Sif Pop members. Thank you so much for making possible what we do at Sif Pop, both here on the podcast and sifpop.com. We appreciate you. If you're interested in what membership is and kind of some of the fun perks that go along with it, you can check it out at the Patreon. Patreon.com/SiftPop is where you would go to find that. We record a bonus podcast for our SiftPop members each week, and this week we talked to Ben about his list of shame. We played the List of Shame game with Ben on the member show for this week. If you want to check that out, go to patreon.com/SiftPop. All right, let's do it. Let's finally get to our best TV of 2020. Now, I will preface this by saying that we have done the SiftPop TV Awards towards the middle of the year, actually end of the summer usually, somewhere around fall, just because that's kind of in the past been how TV works. New stuff comes out in the fall, they take summer off, but that has become so like old school that really we should just do it by the year now. And so we're incorporating it into the 2020 Sifties from here on out. Because of that, there is some TV we will miss talking about in our awards. The one that kills me is Watchmen. Watchmen took place after the eligibility for last time, but before the eligibility for this time, because it was the end of 2019 is when when Watchmen aired, and is in my top 3 TV shows of all time. But we will not be mentioning it. Yeah, so yeah, shout out to Watchmen. But it will not be eligible for our top 5. So we're gonna go number 5 to number 1. And just kind of count them down. And Andrew, why don't you kick us off? What's your number 5 TV show of 2020?
I'm going to start it off with What We Do in the Shadows.
Good choice.
This season in particular was really fun. The Superb Owl episode, or actually Jackie Daytona is one of my favorite episodes ever. Yeah. Mark Hamill kills it in that episode. It's so great. I think Laszlo might be my favorite character on the show. It's weird because it's one of those shows where if you were to say anybody on that cast, Guillermo, Laszlo, any of them were your favorite, I'm like, yeah, I get it. They're all great. Mm-hmm. It's just such a perfectly cast show. But yeah, the Jackie Daytona episode is brilliant.
Guillermo's on Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist this season. Did you know that?
I don't know what that is.
What? Zoe? I thought we had talked about Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
Zoe Deschanel?
No.
Oh.
But anyhow, never mind then. I thought that was a common love, but apparently not. All right, number 5 for you, Ben.
So I was late to the party on this show, the Clone Wars, the final season. I didn't start watching this until 2015, and by the end, I was like, "But there's more to tell," and we never got it until this year. And the first couple episodes were a little slow at the start, but I enjoyed it. You had the Bad Batch, the Ahsoka arc was okay, but once you got to the final couple episodes and Order 66, and then you have the Maul versus Ahsoka fight, which is absolutely astonishing, even in animated form. That's incredible. Mm-hmm. That's up there with some of the best lightsaber duels in Star Wars. But that last shot of Darth Vader holding that blue lightsaber is just, oh my God, it was so awesome. I really, really love this show. And I love the cap on the end. It was perfect.
Good choice. Very good choice indeed.
What you got, Aaron?
My number 5 is Devs. It's been a hot minute since this show was out, but this show was just like written for me. Like basically, I'm pretty sure they just studied me and were like, what's the kind of show that Aaron Dicer is going to love, and then they made it for me. It is about free will versus predestination. It is deep and philosophical and interesting, and has the guts to kind of follow its own rules, which a lot of shows, especially sci-fi shows, struggle with sometimes. And man, it's just like, it feels to me just like the exact show that I wanted it to be. So yeah, well done all around. Alex Garland, right? Same person behind Ex Machina, and so you knew it was going to be interesting, and yeah, I really really dug Devs. So
it's a
that
role
is
I
my number
never
5.
would have expected to see Nick Offerman in.
But he's
not
great, right?
He's great, yeah. He's not the standout for the show for me. She is. Is it Sonoya? Is that how you're saying her name? Mizuno?
I'm not sure.
Sonoya Mizuno, but the main girl, she is such a fascinating character. But yeah, I'm right there with you. Devs is brilliant. Good call.
Yeah, very nice. All right. What is your number 4, Andrew?
My number 4 is the good old Rick and Morty. Because, it's season 4 is not my favorite season, but it's still, it has a lot of great stuff in it. The old man in the seat, the very first episode where Morty gets the gym that leads him to his destination. That was a great one. I'm trying to remember. Oh, the vat of acid episode. That might be like one of the best episodes Rick and Morty has ever done. Yeah, it's great. And I also like the Rattlestar Rick Lactica, the planet of only snakes, and how they hit every cliche of an action movie the snakes do.
Yeah.
That was just so fun to watch. So yeah, I like Rick and Morty. Surprise.
Very fun show. Very fun.
I feel like that's a show that's made for me, but I have not watched it yet, and I feel like I need to.
Yeah, just start at the beginning. You'll be good. You'll have a good time. Yeah. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is The Haunting of Bly Manor. While the show doesn't quite live up to Hill House, Hill House is probably my favorite horror thing ever. I love that show. This one is still an emotionally gripping gothic romance. It's much more of a gothic romance than horror, I would even say. And the emotional punch at the end is just very, very gratifying. Mike Flanagan continues to prove that he's one of the leading voices in horror by, grounding the horror in such raw emotion, and the scares are just extra. I just think he's a special director and a special voice in the horror genre.
Very good. My number 4 is Queen's Gambit.
Nice.
That's where I had Queen's Gambit.
We're not doing Trump rules. So.
No. We had a good suggestion to change it to Bump instead of Trump.
I'm down for it, man.
Yeah, it works for me. Bump. But no, we're not doing bump rules on this one. So yeah, I really obviously love Queen's Gambit. I think it's spectacular TV show making. And man, I want to see more of that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy is on a whole another level here. It's interesting because it's kind of a Bobby Fischer story, but once it's told from the female perspective, everything changes, like this world that is so male dominant is brought to its knees by this woman who starts off so meek and timid. By the end of it, she is a presence. Like whenever she walks in a room, that's all anybody sees is her. It's fascinating character development, and it's really interesting. If it got a lot of people interested in chess, which is I'll never argue with. I love chess.
Yep. Every time it has a chance to do a cliche, it turns the other direction, and I think that makes it fascinating as well. So, yeah. So that is my number 4, and Andrew, that is your number 3, correct? Yep. All right, Ben. So what do you got at number 3?
I'm going to keep this ball rolling. Queen's Gambit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I still don't know the first thing about chess, I will be honest. But it doesn't matter. The show is just so thrilling and engaging that you forget sometimes that it's about chess, which is often looked at as a boring sport. But it's not the way that it's shot. It's just very gripping, which is surprising, again, when you're talking about chess. But, this show has one of the most stunning performances and that's from Anya Taylor-Joy. I can't wait to see her career continue to blossom. I've been a fan of hers since I saw Split, and she's incredible.
Mm-hmm. She was in New Mutants this year as well.
She was magic.
Did not see that one.
I just found out within the last week, I think, that her name is actually pronounced Anya Taylor-Joy, and I never knew that.
Well, she was raised in like South America somewhere, so maybe
something like that. Yeah, and
like Peru, I think. I don't know.
And
Argentina.
so it's gonna be one of those things where I'm just like, I'm gonna call her Anya for, like I'm gonna mess it up, but I'm gonna try to remember Anya Taylor-Joy. But yeah, she's incredible. All right, so my number 3 is Ted Lasso. This is a beautiful, fun show that is also heartwarming and positive. There's so much positivity in this show. It's well acted and the humor is great. This is one of those shows I just fell in love with, and I cannot wait for more of this show. It's so good.
Yeah. I've only seen the Funny or Die comedy sketches, so I know what the show is about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Jason Sudeikis. How could you? He is meant for a character like this. Yeah. He's so unapologetically American that it just feels perfect to have him as that role, going over to Britain trying to coach a football team.
It's basically like if a UK football club hired Mr. Rogers to be their coach. Like it's beautiful. I just love it. I absolutely love it. And if Mr. Rogers had a snarky sense of humor about him as well. So yeah, Ted Lasso is my number 3. All right, on to our number 2s. Andrew, what do you got?
This is probably going to be either your guys' number 1, I imagine, but I'm going to go Mandalorian.
Nice. I have it at number 2 as well. So
okay.
Yeah, no need to bump.
I have it at number 1.
Nice.
I get it. I mean, okay, so the first, I think, 4 episodes of this season are like, wow, this is really good. But then the last 6 or whatever, the rest of the progression, I'm like, oh, this is not only amazing fan service, but it's fan service done in a way that still serves the overall story. Like bringing Boba Fett back and having it come in a way that makes sense. Bringing back Bill Burr and him giving that crazy good performance. It's just such... I don't think if it's the show that reignited my passion and my realization that Star Wars could still be good. Because I don't like the new movies, besides the first one. I think that Aaron and I will argue about this till the end of time. But whenever Mandalorian started back, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is good. But these last like 4 or 5 episodes were stellar. That's it. They're stellar. So good.
Yeah,
completely agree.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I've talked about canon unification and how that's kind of my new favorite thing. The idea of taking existing worlds and canon and unifying them in satisfying and logical ways. And Mandalorian does it so well. The Ahsoka stuff, all of it, it's just really brilliant. So
yeah,
well done. What do you have at number 2, Ben?
The Boys. I really enjoy the show. The show is just straight up bonkers. It works on so many levels, whether you're talking about it being a satire of the superhero genre or political commentary or the current climate we live in today, or just being a really brilliantly woven comedy with heavy themes. It's just a really brilliant show. I can't stress that enough. Season 2 is just such a joy, if I could say. There's a lot of graphic stuff that happens in it, but that makes you feel uncomfortable. But like, it is a tightly woven show that I think trumped or was just better than the first series. Yeah, bumped.
Yeah.
Bumped.
Yes.
I love The Boys. I think it's great. I do think season 1 was better than season 2, but I still think season 2 is fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, I think we're to your number 1 then, since I had Mandalorian at number 2.
I'm going to go with Raised by Wolves.
I wondered. It just missed my list.
I mean, I've never seen anything like this. This show is literally otherworldly, but at the same time, it's perfectly done in the sense that I feel like this world is fully realized, but at the same time, I feel like I'm getting to explore and experience everything at the same time the characters are. There's just so many things the show has going for it. I get hyped up every time I talk about it. The philosophical implementations of this show are great. It goes back to the old idiot of being raised by wolves, or in this sense, raised by robots, in an atheistic fashion, as opposed to being raised with a belief system. What that does to the human body, to the human mind. Then you have this mother-father character duo who are so interesting. Mother is like one of the most fascinating characters ever put on television, and I think she was called a Reaper, is what her model is, but the Reapers are like probably like one of the most, like, more terrifying than any other robot droid thing that has ever been created, more than a Terminator, more than HAL 9000. It's just such an ominous creature, I guess you could call it. Everything about the show is, like you said, that Ted Lasso and what was the other show were made for
Devs.
you.
Yeah.
Devs were made for you. Raised by Wolves was made for me.
Yeah,
it's so good. It feels like a Ridley Scott movie, even though he only produced it. If you don't know if you'll like it or not, watch the first movie. Is what I call that first episode, because that first episode is a movie. It's like an hour and a half long, and it feels like it's a fully realized, story. But at the same time, like, everything after that is just icing on the cake. And like Devs, you have no idea where the show is going to go. It's crazy. I love it. Love it, love it, love it.
I like
Necromancer,
it a lot as well.
Necromancer, that's what Mother was. Yeah. Necromancer is the most terrifying android robot, whatever you want to call it, ever put to the screen. Thank you,
I
Aaron.
still haven't seen it, but I really, really want to. I have no excuses. I have HBO Max. I should be watching it. But
oh yeah, it's exclusive to HBO Max, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right. Okay. Ben, you had Mandalorian at number 1.
yeah, and I don't know what else to say about it that hasn't been said. It's just
Sure.
It's so wonderful. As a lifelong Star Wars fan, it just brings me such unadulterated joy. The second season of Mandalorian it's the best. My second favorite thing Lucasfilm has done since Disney bought them in 2012. And you mentioned the story canon weaving that they're doing within the Mandalorian. That is something that Star Wars has just masterfully done with their animation, with Rebels and Clone Wars, and now they're starting to do, and the books too, and now they're starting to do it with the live action TV shows. And as a Star Wars fan, I want more. I know that's selfish, but I just want more.
Well, you're going to get it. There's a lot coming, that's for sure.
Fret not.
Yeah, your wishes will be fulfilled.
All right, Aaron.
My number 1 is also a canon unification show. I've got Better Call Saul at number 1, and it definitely harbors in the idea of taking an established universe and making the pieces fit into interesting backstory. Of course, Bob Odenkirk is Saul Goodman. You've got Rhea Seehorn doing incredible work. Jonathan Banks back as Ehrmantraut. And no show owns me story-wise like this show. I am so into this story. I am so just compelled by what is going to happen to these characters. And that is a really interesting magic trick when you consider it's a prequel
Yeah.
So you kind of know the quote unquote end for some of these characters, and yet I'm still fascinated about how they get there or what that's going to look like. And,
Yep.
you know, there's a handful of these characters that I kind of know where they end up, and there's a handful I have no idea. Why do I have no idea what's going to happen? So yeah, Better Call Saul continues to own me, and is my number one show of 2020, and I cannot wait for more. Please bring me more seasons of Better Call Saul.
Don't
I'm
worry,
very,
they
very
will.
excited. They will. They will.
Yeah.
My wish shall also be granted.
Yeah.
Any shout outs that you guys have before we kind of close this thing out? TV, you kind of wish you at least got a chance to shout out and mention, Andrew?
Solar Opposites, I think, was one that I was very close to mentioning.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. But I figured it, since I mentioned Rick and Morty, I do like Rick and Morty, this season of Rick and Morty more. But there was that episode of Solar Opposites that's titled The Gang Steals Pandas or a Bear or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with that, but you still see them in the background and stuff. I think that you said it was your favorite episode too.
It is. It is my favorite episode of the season, yeah.
It's
such
very
a smart
fun show. It's such a fun show.
You guys are giving me so many shows that I have to catch up on. I'm slacking on my show watching.
Solar Opposites is Justin Roiland, who did do Rick and Morty. It's more, I guess you could say, network friendly than Rick and Morty, but
also not.
But it's more network friendly than Rick and Morty, but still not really that network friendly. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, they're both great shows. They really are.
The aforementioned Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist that I thought Andrew knew about but doesn't was also very close to making my list. Very fun show where people just break out into song, but it's part of the plot. Very fun.
Is it a musical? You know, I haven't seen a musical.
Upload is another one I wanted to mention. It just kind of came and went, and a lot of people aren't talking about it, but I really kind of enjoyed the concept and thought it was pretty good. And then Rami, I wanted to mention as well. There are some shows that just take me into, that really put me in the shoes of other people and give me experiences that I would never have. And to experience the Muslim faith through Rami in the show is really brilliant and helps me understand more about the idea and the religion, and not just the religion, but it made me feel like there were many common connecting points that people who've grown up in religious faiths probably have about what it's like to balance the faith of your parents versus your own faith, the ability to understand what rules are important, why rules are important. Are the rules just rules, or do they come from somewhere? You know, like all those things you deal with growing up with what your parents believe and kind of working your way through your own beliefs are here, but from kind of the Muslim perspective. And I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to mention Rami as well.
Nice.
Which I think is streaming somewhere. I can't remember what streaming service Rami is on. What Solar Opposites is Hulu, right? I think Rami might be Hulu too.
Rami's Hulu.
Okay, yeah. Hulu kind of hitting it out of the park these days. Doing some good
they're
stuff.
about to have
Solar Opposites is
Alien
Hulu
TV show, right?
What's that?
They're about to have an Alien TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Like Xenomorph Alien?
Yeah,
I think so.
Like the Alien universe. In fact, Devs is Hulu as well. Like, they're really doing great stuff over
Hulu
Hulu.
did good this year.
Yeah, very much.
For sure.
Well, there you go, guys. We did it. We did a podcast. Look at that.
Yeah.
Podcasting has happened.
Yay!
I'm surprised nobody mentioned Tiger King.
Well, I mean, it was just kind of this moment, right? It was like this pop culture moment, but I don't know that I really loved it.
For pop culture moments, I'm surprised nobody mentioned it because that was all anybody talked about at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Listen,
no, you're not wrong.
I felt like I had to take a shower after watching that. I felt
it was a little icky. It was a little icky. Yeah.
I felt gross after watching it. And I was like, why did I spend so much time watching this terrible show? It's like watching a car crash, but I couldn't look away, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Carol Baskin.
Right there with you.
Carol Baskin.
Carol Baskin. She is on
Thank you
Dancing with
so
the
much for
Stars.
joining. Yes, she was. Thank you so much for joining us today for Sif Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out with us today.
Thank you, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
And babies, woo!
You producing babies.
Yeah.
Thanks to Drew for the graphics that go along with the video show.
Golf clap.
And big thank you to Ben Davis for hanging out with us today. Ben, where would you send people to? What do you want to promote? What's going on the internet with you?
So you can follow me at Ben Davis Movie Podcast on Instagram, where I post reviews from time to time. I also keep updates on my podcast. And each month on my podcast, I cover a specific topic. And each week, I cover a movie diving deep into that, pertaining to that specific topic. And this week, I'll be talking about the classic The Princess Bride. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Very nice. Very nice. You can also check out all the stuff that goes on at sifpop.com, where Ben is managing editor. Also, if you want to be a member, you can do that at patreon.com/sifpop. Support starts at $3 a month, and you get access to all the bonus episodes, as well as some other fun things. So you can check that out there. You can connect with us by commenting, rating, or leaving a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And if you would like to send us an email, you can do that as well. feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too. So make sure you let them know about it and that listening is much easier, well, than the entire calendar year of 2020. We will be back next week with part 2 of the 2020 Sifties. This will include our favorite movies of the year, our favorite performances of the year, and our favorite movie moments of 2020. And we will see you then.
Bye.
Bye. Yes, Tom. Tom was asking in the chat if next week top 5 movies of 2020. Actually, it'll be top 10. We give a little more time for the movies to count those down. So yeah, we will do that next week for sure. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Yeah. Bye. There's something you guys might actually like on YouTube. It's the low budget version of A Princess Bride. You brought that up, The Princess Bride. Have you seen
Like
the
kind
low
of a
budget
homemade?
version? Yeah, the homemade one.
No.
Have you seen it?
No.
It's a bunch of Hollywood actors, like every Hollywood actor. Like they remake The Princess Bride in their backyard from POV, or not POV, but only like cutting from one person to another, and they keep recasting the main characters. It's really funny.
Cool. That's really cool.
It starts off with Chris Evans and I think Emma Stone as Buttercup and Wesley, and then there's a bit where what's his name from Oh Hello, Nick Kroll. Nick Kroll does Vicini, Fezzik, and Inigo. He does all of them. He just puts on a different wig, and they have like little toy like Lego boats, like going like these are the shrieking eels and stuff like that. And then it goes like it immediately transfers to who was Common playing Wesley. You're like, oh, okay, I guess Common's Wesley now. But it's like
fun.
Everybody. It's really fun and cute. So I'd recommend that.
I might have to check that out tonight.
Yeah, it's on YouTube for free.
I wanted to say, David says, good podcast. It's good to hear from you, David.
Hey, David.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with us. Really appreciate that. And yes, Jay was also asking, was this not the best films of 2020? Nope, that is part 2 next week. Hopefully plenty of fun categories. Anyways, though, we're going to say goodbye to our video audience. We love you guys. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. We'll catch you next week.